Welcome to our interview on the Working Age Forum. This is our bi-monthly session, and this month we're focused on LinkedIn. I'm Brendan Ward, and I'm here with Claire Kennelly in Cork, who is part of the team, part of the LinkedIn session we're having this evening. And Claire and I were starting to walk around this big topic called LinkedIn. And one of the first questions that came up that I wanted to ask you, Claire, in your own experience of LinkedIn is, why do you use LinkedIn?
Okay, thanks, Brendan. Well, I suppose about 4.5 years ago, I had the idea of starting my own business. As you know, I have vision loss, and my background is teaching. And I suppose I saw this huge gap between where people were so educated, no matter what their disabilities were, they were succeeding in education, but they weren't succeeding in the workplace. So I saw this kind of disability employment gap. And I was on LinkedIn, but very much as just kind of looking and watching and reading and educating myself. And anyway, about 4.5 years ago, decided to start my own business around training because of my teaching background. So I thought a good place to become visible was on LinkedIn. And so that's where I started just building my business, my ideas, writing about my ideas, and just putting myself out there, really. And that was probably the first platform that I put my business and my training and kind of talking about what I do and why it's important and all of that. I started with LinkedIn.
Great. And was there any sense of peer pressure or influence from, people you heard talking about it, or people who were making suggestions to you in that journey of your own business? Was there kind of this voice from outside encouraging and recommending LinkedIn?
Not really, because when I started up my own business, I was doing it on my own, so I didn't have a team around me. So really, I just found LinkedIn a great place to get information and to educate myself as well, right? So one, reading other people's ideas, and two, they actually have really good trainings if you are starting your own business. And like, I knew nothing about marketing and sales or anything like that.
That's going to make your stomach feel queasy.
We might want to mute everyone there, if you can.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Yep, please mute if you're not speaking, and thank you for doing that. All right.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so I didn't feel any particular peer pressure, but was I influenced by people on LinkedIn? Absolutely.
Right.
There were a number of people that I started following who I felt were inclusion leaders around the world, and I would definitely kind of start reading their articles, reading their newsletters, following them. All right. And yeah, just learning. There was an awful lot to learn, because when you're on a platform like LinkedIn, your audience isn't just in Ireland, your audience is worldwide. Right. It's a global audience. And I suppose that was the difference, because I was coming from like a school, a staff room where my life was very local. And suddenly I was connecting with people who I had a lot in common with, who are on the other side of the world. And I love meeting people. I love meeting new people. And I had an awful lot to learn around inclusion. So I found it a good space to learn. Yeah.
Understood. Fantastic. And there's the benefit of the technology for connecting beyond what we can do physically in any geographical space. LinkedIn helps us get connected, not just around the country, but globally. Could I ask, Claire, how you use LinkedIn? So with those goals in mind and with that influence, how do you actually use it, practically speaking?
Okay, well, I'll start by saying, like, I'm on a journey with LinkedIn as well, right? And whoever has just set up a profile, don't feel under any pressure that it has to be perfect straight away, because mine has evolved over those 4.5 years. So like initially I set up a profile and I was on it, right? But I hadn't done much work around inclusion. So, and I hadn't much information on it, right? So initially when I was on it, I was learning and following and reading and, you know, maybe liking stuff and making contacts here and there, especially if you know, like say tonight, we can connect with each other because we've met in this context. Or if you go to a conference and you meet someone, you connect with them. So you're like the first maybe year or so was just slowly building my profile. And then how do I use it? I suppose I really use it for my business. I remain very professional on LinkedIn. Everything I talk about on LinkedIn is regarding inclusion, either a training that I did or some good practice of inclusion that I've seen. I will never like put up pictures of my children or my dog on LinkedIn. All right. I think that's a different space. That's a different platform if you want to do that. But my advice, and I think it's worked for me, is to remain like just professional and keep the relationships professional on LinkedIn. So it's evolved over time and my profile has evolved over time. And you have to keep updating it as well. Like maybe every 6 months I have a look at it and I kind of go, you haven't really done much of that. It's more this, you know, because when you're self-employed, you do go down different directions. I think Tony just said the word, it can be a bit of a zigzag when you're self-employed. Where you think you're going, someone throws an opportunity your way and you take it and you turn left and then you turn right again. So, yeah, I like if it's for building up a business and your profile or just or to look for a job, if you want visibility, I think it's a great place to give yourself visibility and to talk about your skill set, your strengths, what you're interested in, what you support, and to show how professional you are in that area. Mine over time then, because I'm running a business and I do training, and people that I did training for, I asked them for recommendations. And once you have like recommendations on your profile then as well, that helps you to get the next job. Have I got work out of LinkedIn? Yes. People have found me on LinkedIn.
Great.
Yes.
And out of interest, do you use the app on the smartphone or do you use the website on a laptop or a tablet? Okay,
well, I straight away I use the laptop if I'm doing anything serious. And if you're setting up your profiles or anything like that, my suggestion is not just to like look at the headings of what has to go into the profile. And for me, what I did is I write it up in Word, right? Write it up in Word and save it somewhere and then copy and paste it in. It's very hard to set up your profile word for word when you're in the platform, right? Now you can go back in and edit it easily enough. But my advice would be, if you're setting up for the first time, do it all in Word and then copy and paste it back into the platform. So if I am also writing, say, I've done a training or something interesting happens and I want to write something about it, I'll write it up in Word and then copy and paste it into writing a post. I won't just, unless it's just a simple picture or like I'm resharing something, then like I'll just, you know, if it's really short. But in general, if I want it to be, you know, have paragraphs and make sure the grammar is correct and everything, I will type it up first and all of that work I will do on my laptop. Okay. So I'll use LinkedIn on my laptop and I see it as part of my working day, checking out LinkedIn, replying to messages, because a lot of people don't email me, they contact me via LinkedIn, right? But if I'm out and about during the day or on holidays or whatever, and I check LinkedIn, and I like something Brendan Ward writes something in the Working Age Forum, I'll like it, I'll share it. I can do all of that on the app on my phone. But what I can't do on my phone as a result of vision loss is I just can't type. I just can't, it just doesn't work for me to say, oh, I'm going to write a message to someone. Maybe a reply to a message I can do because I can record it in. But ye all know you can record something and you could be sending double Dutch to the other person. Like you still have to check it. So like, especially, you know, in our, like if you say, okay, I'll see you in, you know, Kilcrohane, and like, sure, you could end up in Tanzania. Like, I mean, the word, you know, like it doesn't always translate the way you want it to. So, but I use both, Brendan, is the answer to the question, but for different reasons and in different ways. Yeah. Understood. And it's interesting to hear how the different
ways of accessing LinkedIn might suit people differently depending on their level of vision, depending on the examples you gave, Claire, where you like to write stuff out and copy and paste over to the profile and building up your profile, whereas something quicker and easier when you're on the move, you could do using the app. So we'll hear more from Tony and Tabitha in a few minutes about the different use cases. But for now, is there one word of advice or one suggestion you would make to our audience before we wrap up?
Definitely, I think in terms of all the platforms that I'm on for my business, because I would have a presence on Instagram, but I find that very difficult because you can't really do anything from your laptop. It all has to be on your mobile device, and I can't use my mobile device, so I don't have a huge presence there. Facebook, like, I don't have a huge presence there either. I find it very difficult to navigate both on the laptop and on the app, on the mobile app. And when I send a message out or a post out on LinkedIn, I automatically choose that it goes to LinkedIn and Twitter. So that's how I have a presence on Twitter. I never hardly go into Twitter, but I know every time I send something out on LinkedIn, it automatically goes to Twitter. So the advice that I would give people today, if it's if you want to kind of build your professional profile, I think you need to be on LinkedIn, right? It's 2022, and I think that's where people will find you. If you want visibility around your career, around what your career journey, that what you hope it to be, where your skill sets are, what you're interested in, I think there's a lot to learn on it. An awful lot of the information, it's all free. If you want to do particular courses, you might pay for them, but like there's an awful lot that's free, and you will build up your network. I mean, definitely link in with everyone who's on Working Age Forum. We're all here to support each other in any way we can. And I just think building up that network and having those, even if they are virtual relationships, that's okay too. You know, make sure you have loads of other real people relationships. But like, I feel sometimes I have two worlds. You know, I have this professional world that's online, and then of course I have family and friends and all of that. But this world is really important to me. Like, Brendan and I have never met in person. Like, and yet, like, we met at an NCBI event online. Like, we contact each other by WhatsApp or LinkedIn. We, like, he runs the Working Age Forum and I come in and help him. Like, we have a professional relationship that is really, really important to me. And yet we've never met, you know. So like, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great, and long may it last. And I hope in 2023 that we do meet. But yeah, my advice, anyone, is don't be worried about it. Don't be scared of it. Just do it. And just like any other platform, okay, the warning, right? If anyone sends you anything creepy, just block them. Just block them, right? Because that will happen. That could happen on any platform. Don't be discouraged. That's on them, not on you. And block them immediately and remain professional. That's what I would say. So
all right. Well, thank you for the very practical insights and wisdom there, Claire, because, you know, for all of the folks attending, it's sometimes hard to work through all of these mainstream messages around LinkedIn and the mainstream opinion. It's hard to get advice that's very specific to our use case, which is people interested in employment, involved in employment, job seekers, what have you, and happen to be blind or vision impaired. So it's really valuable what you've been able to share so richly there. And thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
It brings us nicely on to the second of the interview segments. So building on what Claire was just saying about how she used LinkedIn, why she uses LinkedIn, and some words of advice, I wanted to hand it over to Tabitha and Tony. So Tabitha has kindly lined up a few questions to start a conversation with Tony. And Tabitha and Tony, take it away.
Thank you so much, Brendan and Claire, for laying the groundwork there for us. I'm Tabitha Kenlin. Hello. I'm happy to be here. Obviously not Irish. I am coming to you from the East Coast of the US, and I believe Tony is in the other capital city of Ireland. This is something I learned in my year of studying in Ireland about the Dublin Cork argument, disagreement, rivalry, whatever you want to call it. So I am on LinkedIn, and I have to admit that I have always been a little bit of a LinkedIn skeptic. So I was really looking forward to this conversation and learning more about how it can actually be useful and helpful. So got some great advice there from Claire. So I guess just Tony, can you start by telling us a little bit about your experience with LinkedIn and what prompted you to set up an account? What I guess, maybe what were you kind of hoping to get out of it? And do you feel like LinkedIn has lived up to your expectations? What's it done for you?
Yeah, very good, Tabitha. So hi, everyone. I mean, I think most people know this already, or if you don't, you'll have recognized the similarity in voice, but I'm Brendan's brother, and very happy to be part of the Working Age Forum. So I suppose when I was thinking about this, Tabitha, like ahead of us talking about it, and I suppose by the virtue of the fact that I'm older and I have been working for a good number of years, I suppose I had a reason to try and understand LinkedIn. And at one point in time, and this is actually, I think, where my interaction with LinkedIn started. At one point in time, about it's 9 years ago now, or 10 years ago now, I took up a role as head of fundraising with an organization called Fighting Blindness. And it was really at that point, up until then, I did have a LinkedIn profile. I'm sure I set it up somehow. And by the way, just to say that for people on this call, I'm whatever rung of the ladder you're on in terms of technology, I'm probably on a rung beneath you. So I'm not Mr. Shaker and Mover when it comes to technology, but I'm a late adopter, I suppose, is a good way to put it, maybe. So I had a LinkedIn profile, and God knows I might have had like 10 connections or 20. It was very feeble anyway. But when I joined Fighting Blindness as head of fundraising, I thought that was my impetus, because I knew I needed to connect with the outside world. So it's a little bit like what Claire was saying, and setting up our own business, and you sort of realize the outside world is now somewhere I need to connect. And if I can just continue to tell this little story a bit, because I was thinking about it earlier. I found it very difficult to access on my computer, but again, that maybe more got to do with me than got to do with the medium of a computer. I use a adaptive software on my computer called Supernova, which I like. It's got a speech and magnification, but I found LinkedIn very difficult. Now, this is 10 years ago, so maybe it's improved since then, but I found the interface very difficult. I could never sort of be in the right thing at the right time, and where are your messages, or how do you connect with people, or how do you trawl through it, and so on. And what I actually did, which I think is something that people on this call could do if they wanted to, and I still do it, is that if you need to do something a little bit maybe like Claire just described there, if you were writing your profile from scratch and then you needed to put it into LinkedIn, get somebody to help you, I mean, so I at various points in time have just asked. I know what I want to do, but I'm struggling to do it. So I definitely back then, interacting with it on the computer, I asked some of my then work colleagues, listen, can you just help me? And we actually used to have a Monday morning sort of half hour on LinkedIn where we'd sort of just go snooping in the outside world. And do you know this person? No, somebody's invited you to connect. Okay, accept that. And it was like, I suppose, throwing pebbles into a pond, the ripple effect. So it started spreading out and out and out. And I suppose I gradually built up the number of connections I had. And I did find people on it. You know, it's quite interesting. Like, but again, it's not, as Claire described, it's not Facebook, it's not Instagram, it's not TikTok, it's not a personal social media platform. But I was definitely using it for the purposes of work. And I definitely, I mean, I'm not going to give these examples now because time is limited, but I can think of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 instances where I needed something or I was looking for something from a professional point of view, and I found it on LinkedIn, and I don't think I would have found it anywhere else. So if you are in the world of work, or I would think even looking for work, you know, you can, it's a place that you can, people expect it too, you know. So as Claire said earlier, you know, it's not for photographs of your dog and your kids or whatever. It's a place you can go to interact with people from a professional or working environment. So I found it very useful. And one little story, Tabitha, and then I'll let you intervene rather than me talk for the next 20 minutes. There's a guy actually, his name is Pascal Derrien, so he's French originally. He's actually currently the CEO of the Migraine Association of Ireland. But at that time, there was a LinkedIn has groups, you know, and there's a group called Irish Executives Network, and I saw, well, you know, saw using my adaptive speech technology him on LinkedIn all the time, and I'm thinking, what's he doing on LinkedIn? So I sent him a message and sort of said, hello, Pascal, would you mind telling me how this works? Basically, is what I asked him. And he said, why did you come out? He was so generous. And I went out and visited him in Microsoft, and he sat me down and basically said, yeah, listen, Tony, this is what I do. This is what this Irish Executive Network is. Yeah, you do need to do these things. You don't need to do these things. This is how you do this and that and the other. And I've kept with him, in touch with him ever since. And he was the most generous man with his time. And I suppose, I think if you're in doubt and you can link in with somebody who knows more than you do, that's also something I think people are very, I have found people to be very generous through LinkedIn connections.
Oh, that's great. That's a wonderful example. I think you're right that it does seem to be expected that people have a LinkedIn presence. I mean, I'm currently looking for a job, and you know, numerous application forms that I've done have a space for your LinkedIn link. You know, they seem to expect everyone who's, you know, in the job market to have a presence there. So I think I was going to ask you what you found most valuable, but I feel like you've sort of answered that, just sort of really being able to make those connections and find both information and people. I think that is something that I have actually, I have to admit, despite my LinkedIn skepticism, I found it valuable to look at other people's profiles and kind of see, you know, maybe what different positions they've held, their career positions, you know, what LinkedIn groups they're a part of. Have you done that sort of thing? Have you found that useful at all, or am I just kind of?
Yeah, I have, and I don't know whether I don't want to steal your questions ahead of their order, but
It doesn't matter. It's just a chat.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I know that, but I suppose, you know, another thing happened to me, and Claire actually mentioned this too, in terms of when Brendan says that you use the app or the laptop. So I struggled, I have to say, with the desktop version of LinkedIn. But I still caveat that by saying, you know, remember the rungs of the ladder that I'm on when it comes to technology. So other people may be able to use that, and that's absolutely fine. But then about 3 years ago, I got the app, and I am an absolute demon on LinkedIn now, you know. You know, honestly, I find it so easy. So it's an app, it's like your WhatsApp app, or it's like, you know, your any messaging app. You know, I tap into it, it's so easy. It's basically got you know, general information, it's got messages, it's got your notifications from your network. You can search for people so easily. I'm not so good at posting, because Claire is right, you probably need to, if your post has you know, a message in it and links and stuff, you probably need to create that. It's hard to create that on your phone, but I can repost stuff. I can see stuff, I can interact with it, I can message people. I find the app so easy. I find it so, like, it is, I'm in the top, I would say 1% of people in Ireland using the LinkedIn app. Even some organizations I'm involved in, they sort of go, oh Jesus, Tony, you know, you liked our post on LinkedIn like nobody else did. And I'm not spending, you know, inordinate amounts of time on it, but I find it so easy. And you know, it enhances those things, Tabitha, that I mentioned, you know, about connecting with people, following things. You can read news stories on it. And it's not like desperately addictive. You know, it probably sounds a little bit like the Tony's on LinkedIn, you know, 10 hours a day. I'm most definitely not. I'm probably on it, you know, maybe 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. It's very relevant to me from a work point of view. I find the app so easy.
That is good to know, because I think you know, that's something that we have to think about is, you know, what our different accessibility needs are. So if the, you know, if the online, you know, the web laptop version isn't that great with screen readers, but the app is, then that's wonderful, you know, that it has that option for people who are using screen readers. I'm still scared. I need to learn how to use the screen reader. My vision is declining, so I need to tackle that. I've been afraid, so I've been using the laptop, you know, the web version on my laptop of LinkedIn, and I do sometimes find it confusing visually because I zoom my screen and I can only see bits at a time, and there is a lot on the screen visually, and they have this habit of, like, if you like send a message or something, they'll leave the message panel up there. And so then I have to hunt around and try to find the little, you know, X to close it. So it is good to know that the app is a good option for non-visual use.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll encourage
you
me
know, yeah, and actually, you know, there's a point that you know, you just reminded me about, and Claire made too. I think, and this is a working age forum for, as Brendan said earlier, blind, low vision, partially blind, partially sighted, whatever language you want to use yourself. You know, from my point of view, I'm not doing any of this visually, none of it. Like, it's all audible, and you know, so I'm not encouraging people who can see to abandon their sight, because obviously, you know, they can use it for in a useful way. But honestly, I think the speech makes it easier. Like, I'm not searching for anything. I'm just swiping to the right, swiping to the left, scrolling up and down. Even the point that Claire made there about typing a message in, easy, you know, like it's you know, I often use dictate, you know, on the you know, on the keyboard. You know, okay, fine, it'll spell Clooney, Croghan, or whatever the place Claire was talking about in Cork, it'll spell it wrong, but you can easily go back and fix it. And actually, here's the thing, and I have to thank Brendan for this. I got a remote keyboard, you know, a Bluetooth keyboard connected to my phone. And if I have to type a big long message, I just flick that on, you know, and suddenly I'm connected to Bluetooth to my phone and type the message in, you know. So yeah, it's workaround stuff, I suppose, compared to maybe a fully sighted person, but it works very well for me.
Yeah, that's a great point. All of those accessibility options there. So I was going to ask you about, you know, are there any particular benefits to the, you know, the blind and partially sighted community? But I feel like you've answered that question too. There's some accessibility training. No, it's wonderful. And I think that we should probably wind down, so we have a little bit of time for questions if you're from the audience, if you're open to that. But I'll just ask you the final question that Brendan asked Claire. Would you have any words of advice for people who might be, you know, sort of just tackling LinkedIn for the first time? Any encouragement or warnings?
I suppose I don't think they're warnings, and I suppose it's a little bit like an awful lot of technology nowadays. I'm sure I'm only using it to, like, you know, 25 or 50% of its capacity. Like, when you go in to create your profile, like, there's so many features. You can have summaries of it, you can have education, you can have interests, you can have, you know, highlights, you can have, you know, so many things that I probably don't use. a little bit, I think, like a lot of things, you don't need to use, like think of a car, you know, there's so many features in cars now, and basically mostly what you need is a steering wheel and tires or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So
Also brakes are important.
yeah, brakes are useful, I have to concede, yeah. But and a windscreen on the roof. But anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, I think, you know, I would keep it simple-ish, you know. So use what you need to use. People look at it. So I'm in the world of work. If you're seeking employment, or if you're in employment and changing jobs or whatever, people do look it up. You know, that's what they do. That's what everyone does nowadays. They go, oh, you know, you're Tony Ward or you're Tabitha Kenlon. They look it up. You know, you have it's your online presence. So I suppose keep it simple, get somebody to help you set it up in the first instance. One little thing that I was going to use the word annoys me, but maybe that's too strong a word, but it's just something, it's a preference, I suppose. In your top line, you can actually have a description of yourself, you know. So actually there's a former contributor to this Working Age Forum, Dara Cuneja, who's based down in Tralee and in Kerry, and his top line is something like Dara Cuneja, radio continuity presenter, proud guide dog owner, something like that. Okay, now that's a little bit more about, I suppose, it's flagging his sight loss. But if you don't put something in your top line, and I see this coming in my LinkedIn feed, it'll just say Tabitha Kenlon, and I immediately go, well, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you do, and you haven't described yourself. Whereas if you say Tabitha Kenlon, CEO of Irish Guide Dogs for the Blind or something, you know, there's a descriptor there. So I think you should have some descriptor of what you're doing. I don't particularly like the descriptor, and I've seen it sometimes of people saying like Tony Ward seeking his next opportunity, right? I don't like that because it's too open. But I would, if it was me and I was starting from scratch looking for a job, I would describe myself with some basic thing in my title, so it would pop up on people's on the descriptor. And then, you know, if you are seeking your next opportunity, and again, messaging does this on LinkedIn, I just reach out to people. You know, people reach out to me all the time, and some of it is sort of cold calling, and some of it isn't. It's more warm calling, if you like. But you know, I'd liken it to this. Imagine you're going around trying to sell something door to door. I think you get a much better response if you knock on people's doors rather than if you just drop a flyer in through their door, you know. So I think even if you're at a very basic stage and you have your profile and you know what you're trying to do and you're trying to seek work, you know, you can use it, but use it in a direct way rather than just you know, putting a big generic sort of call out there would be my advice.
Yeah, no, those are all really helpful observations. Thank you. And now I have a job title to aspire to.
Well, whatever. CEO. I couldn't think of something. But,
well, I think currently my my description is writer and researcher. So I kind of cast a wide net with it, but because I'm open to you know, different kinds of ways to apply those skills. But I feel like those are my two most marketable, hopefully noticeable skills. So yeah, I put that in there. And I think you're right too about you know, that there are a lot of, I guess, you know, bells and whistles and things that you can do, but if you're just getting started, you don't have to feel the pressure to figure out everything all at once. It's okay to sort of ease your way in there. That was very helpful. Thank you so much. I feel a little warmer towards LinkedIn now.
Oh, good. I'm on a commission from LinkedIn, by the way. I should have said that at the beginning. That's a joke, by the way. I'm not.
Well, thank you, Tabitha. Thank you, Tony, very much for that. And we'll actually pose the questions. So I know there will be questions for sure, but what we'd like to do is first thing, stop the recording, which I'll do now. And that will that will formally end the recording.